Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming and thank you for the invitation. It's a big honor for me to talk here at the Geneva summit. So the title of the panel, as you know, the return of authoritarianism, and I think it fully reflects the situation which we now face in Russia. And Russia is not a democracy anymore. It's not a flawed democracy. It's an authoritarian country with the enormous role of Vladimir Putin, president of Russia. And I would like just to briefly support the idea that Russia is not a democracy. First of all, a Russian economy is controlled by the state. Over 70% of Russian gross domestic product is generated by state enterprises. That means that we do not have competitive market economy, and this is the essential feature of any liberal democracy. We have no political competition, though according to the official polls, 15% of Russians, from 15% to 20% of Russians, these people are critical of Vladimir Putin. They are not represented in any political bodies. No representatives of of those people who are critical of the regime in the Russian lower chamber of parliament, in the Russian State Duma. We have no division of powers, actually. All power is concentrated in the arms of collective Vladimir Putin. We have no free media, as it was mentioned. All major Russian TV stations are controlled by the state or are owned by the state, and that means that 15% of Russians, or those who represent their interests, are not heard. They have no chance to be heard, but they have good chances to be attacked by Russian state media. We now witness the growing role of the Russian Orthodox Church in all spheres, and it's a tool in the arms of the Russian state to ensure its power. And very old religious dogmas, which remind us of the Middle Ages, are revived. And at this point, I would like to cite the words of the Patriarch of the Russian Church, who said exactly these words. Today we are dealing with a global heresy of worshiping the human, the new idolatry that removes God from human life. I think that these words speak for themselves. Unfortunately, in Russia, we have political prisoners. We have over 100 political prisoners now in Russia, and I'm very happy that today Anastasia Zotova, wife of Ildar Dadin, who was sentenced to a term in prison for one-man protests, for peaceful actually protests, she's today with me, and she's going to speak about the situation in Russian prisons. One famous Russian writer and satirist once said to me, you know, it's very easy to detect whether a particular regime is an authoritarian or it's a democracy. In a democracy, there is political satire and there are no political prisoners. In an authoritarian regime, there are political prisoners and there is no political satire targeting national leaders. And that's the case with Russia, unfortunately. I live in Germany. I'm based in Bonn, and I travel across Europe, and I talk to many people, and I know that there are lots of myths about Russia, though Mr. Moderator said that Russia is a well-studied subject. And one of the myths is that Russian leader Vladimir Putin is very popular. And this idea is based on their opinion polls. But you have to understand that opinion polls do not reflect any reality in an authoritarian regime. Because people are feared to express their ideas and their opinions publicly, as they see the increasing repression and political oppression. calls are not reliable. We don't have mass protests in Russia because people are feared to take to streets to protest against the Russian government. Although we have two trends that can show to us the real state of affairs in Russia. First of all, in the last 5 years, 500,000 people left Russia. Many Europeans and Americans say Russians are not prepared for a democracy. But you know, these people didn't go to North Korea, they didn't go to Saudi Arabia, they didn't go to Iran. All these people went to Germany, Canada, and the United States of America. And according to a lot of studies, Russians are those people who integrate quite easily, and that means that millions of Russians are familiar with European values and they feel themselves comfortable in democratic countries, and they choose democratic countries for living. Secondly, what I want to say is we had the parliamentary elections in Russia, and the turnout rate was below 50%. And in Moscow, it was below 30%. It's the lowest rate since the beginning of the 21st century. And that means that people do not believe in elections. I understand that these are fake elections, and they don't want to participate in these fake elections. And in many people's opinion, this is a silent protest. We don't know what the result of this silent protest will be. Though authoritarian regimes are visibly very stable, they are in fact very unpredictable. And it creates a lot of uncertainty. I want to end my short speech with the words of my father. He loved to repeat them. My father, Boris Nemtsov, the leading liberal politician in Russia, killed almost 2 years ago. 27th of February marks the second anniversary of his assassination. And my father repeated the same idea, Russia without Putin. And I think that Russia should be and must be without Putin, and it will be the reality one day. Thank you very much.